We are live in D.C. today, where tens of thousands of people are expected to take to the streets here in Washington and across the country, marching in more than 100 planned rallies. On the 58th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, a push for voting rights and an act of defiance. This year, multiple Republican-led states have tried and succeeded in legally scaling back voting access, with more than 30 new restrictive voting laws enacted in 18 states as of last month. That's according to the Brennan Center for Justice. With me right now in Washington is NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman. So, Josh, the pre-rally for the March on Washington and Voting Rights is beginning in just a few moments. I see the crowd's picking up a little bit. What can we expect?
Yeah, the crowd's picking up, and in fact, even before the sun came up a little bit ago, there were already folks starting to gather here in advance of these events today. You can see they're getting the stage set up behind me for speakers who are going to be appearing here at McPherson Square. Then they are going to be marching down to Black Lives Matter Plaza and then down this direction right past the White House, which is actually right behind those trees over there. You can't quite see it right now, but they'll be heading down to the National Mall. While there are these events taking place all across the country today, Washington, D.C. is really the epicenter, with more events taking place. In addition to this one, there's also going to be a rally and concert taking place at the Lincoln Memorial in the name of Make Good Trouble. And you're going to see a whole host of different speakers out and about today trying to make the case on voting rights. And you might be wondering at home, why now, when it seems like the push for making more voting rights codified into law seems to be really stalled in the Senate. And that really is exactly the point. The voting rights activists that we're speaking to here today say, look, Democrats right now, they are willing to go it alone without Republicans to try to get other parts of President Biden's agenda through on climate, on family assistance through that reconciliation bill. Why not voting rights? And they want to see something done to either get rid of the filibuster or try to modify it so they can make progress on this issue, particularly as we get into the midterms next year, Lindsay.
All right, Josh Letterman, thank you so much for that live report here in Washington. And now I want to bring in co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and president of the Repairers of the Breach, Bishop William J. Barber, who is speaking today at the Make Good Trouble rally at the Lincoln Memorial today. So you have been organizing rallies all summer. Talk to me about the significance of today and what it is that you'll be fighting for.
Well, the great question before America today is, what does it profit America if you hold on to a filibuster and hold on to a partial infrastructure bill, but you lose the soul and the infrastructure of the democracy, which is voting rights, and the infrastructure of our daily lives, which is living wage and economic justice? This cannot be just about one day or one issue. It wasn't in '63. It's not today. We can't say this starts to push back. We've been pushing back. This is a day we come together, and if that's all you do is a day, you haven't done enough. We have to continue to move and have a campaign. So when I go on the stage today, I'll have a Unite Here worker, low-wage worker, and a low-wage worker from West Virginia who's white, one black, standing together speaking, saying, look, this is not just about black people. This is about a moral crisis, that there's a direct line from voter suppression to suppression of living wages, suppression of health care. We have to draw that line, and it's held up by a non-constitutional filibuster.
I want to talk to you about something happening behind us at the Capitol. Let's talk about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It was passed in the House this week. It's expected to see some resistance in the Senate. You talk about, why keep the filibuster if it will abolish the heart of democracy here. But do you think that today's events, the culmination of these hundreds of rallies that we're going to see, will put pressure on lawmakers?
Not if it's just a day. It's got to continue. And the fact of the matter is, what was Dr. King and others speaking out against then? In '63, it was a rally for jobs and justice. They were talking about economic justice. They were talking about voting rights. And they were speaking out against the filibuster in '63. So today, yes, we have to end that filibuster. It has done too much damage down through history. We have to have the John Lewis Voting Rights Restoration Act, but that's still not enough. We have to have the For the People's Act, because that will deal with what's going on now. The Voting Rights Act restoration will deal with what's coming later. But in order to turn back what's dealing now, and then we have to have $15 living wage. And then we have to push for a true economic spending plan that lifts from the bottom up and helps poor and low-wealth people live. So it's all of it. This is a moral crisis that we're in, not just about black and white. And anybody that limits it to one issue is actually not properly remembering the march in '63 nor understanding the pain and the problems that we face today. Black, white, brown, Native, Asian, gay, straight. Everybody's being hurt by this filibuster. Everybody's being hurt by voting rights suppression. Everybody's being hurt because of the lack of living wages.
I want to talk to you about minorities in Texas because we saw a voting restrictions bill passed there. It's likely going to be signed into law. It hasn't yet been. But we're going to show a graphic of what it does. It restricts mail-in and early voting. It adds criminal penalties for violations, gives more power to partisan poll watchers, bans 24-hour and drive-through voting. That was one of the initiatives that was really popular among voters of color. So while Republicans say they're not targeting minorities here, is there any debate here that is who will be most impacted?
It's targeting minorities, but it's also hurting everybody. So you have that happening in Texas, same kind of bill being passed in West Virginia where there's hardly any black people. So we have to broaden this. This is about America's infrastructure of her democracy. And every one of those things you just mentioned, you have to have federal protections to stop them, which means you got to have the For the People's Act, because that deals with access. Voting Rights Act restoration deals with pre-clearance. So you have to have both of those. And guess what? In that state, the same lawmakers that are suppressing the vote and they want to block people from voting, it's happening in 49 other states across the country. 56 million people use the kind of access to the ballot that they're trying to block now. And in Texas, the same people that are doing that, they block living wages, they block health care, they speak out against immigrants. You have to draw the connections. That's why we have to have a multifaceted, multiracial fusion movement, moral movement that says this is a constitutional moral crisis and we can overcome it, and that we cannot be satisfied till we deal with all of these issues.
Well, you have a busy day ahead, and we will be listening to your speech on the Lincoln Memorial. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Forward together,
Thank
not
you.
one step back.
Thank you so much.